Hi, everyone. Welcome to the podcast P is for Plog. This is my weekly podcast where I talk about everything relating to my life as a professional plogger. What is a plogger? Well, a plogger is someone who picks up trash while running. I was doing it in my free time for 13 years, and then last October, I turned it into my day job. Will it work? I really don't know. It seems to be in the balance every time I think about it. And this podcast is really tracking that adventure. Today's episode is super exciting. I'm going to be talking about the big adventure that I've got in May, but I'm also going to be looking back at some other things I've done because today's episode, season 2, episode 4, is P is for projects. Let's get going.
Plug it and tag it and post it and bin it. Plug it and tag it and post it and bin it. Plug it and tag it and post it and bin it. Plug it, 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 plug it.
Okay, so projects. Before I get into it, I really want to sort of talk about one of the challenges I have when I go and pitch to a company to say, sponsor me. On one hand, I really want to tell them what the core business that I do. So when I go and pitch to a company, I actually have to do two things. I have to tell them what they're paying for, but then I have to tell them about what's going to get them excited. I could really just go with that excited part, but that's not really what it's about. For me, my core business and what sets me apart from other people that try and do something along the lines of this as a day job, and this is the reason why I'm saying I'm the first professional plogger in the world, is because my core business is going out for a run, picking up trash. When you're a sponsor, really at the heart of it, that's what you're letting me do. Go out for 365 days or 360 days a year, going for a run, picking up trash. And then what I do is I'll go and tell a story about it. I'll put it on social media and I will try and turn that into a positive story with the intent to inspiring people. When you pick up a piece of trash, it's the trash that you're picking up is actually the smallest impact that you're making. When you pick up a piece of trash, it says you care. You care about the environment you're in. You care about the future that we have. How many of the world's problems would disappear if we all picked up some trash? It's as simple as that. For me, I don't want to use gateway drug, but it's like the gateway into a better tomorrow. For me, it is really that fundamental. So what I say to sponsors is, you're enabling me to show people that you can do this on a daily basis. Every time you step out the door, it doesn't have to be running. And then their eyes glaze over and they kind of go, oh, yeah, well, that's good. But how does that really help me in terms of getting my business sort of increased? I want to sponsor you, but I want to get something in return. And so then I talk about projects. Then I talk about the things that will get the sponsors excited. And that's what this episode's about, is the huge project I'm doing in 2025, the 12 STEDEN Plog or the 12 City Plog. But before I talk about that, I want to just go back, I think, 3 years and talk about one of the previous projects I did. And that will give you an idea of the kind of projects that I've been doing in the past. So just because this is a new career, I've been plogging for 13, 14 years. And I've done all of these projects that I'm really proud of. So let's go back to exactly 3 years ago, 2022. On the 28th of February, that was my last day on one of my adventures, an adventure that I called Ploguary. So what was Ploguary? Well, Ploguary was this fantastic adventure that I sort of thought up. It was around the time of the pandemic, and Des Linden, who is a Brooks professional runner, she did something called Desuary. So what she did was every day of the month. I think she did it in July. What she did was she ran that distance of, and the miles that she ran was based on the date. I'm not explaining that very well. So on the 1st of July, she ran 1 mile. On the 2nd of July, she ran 2 miles, then 3 miles, and so on. So by the end of it, she was running over a marathon a day. And some people call those accumulators, but it just really inspired me. I thought that's such a cool thing to do. I want to do that, but I want to plog it. So what I did was I said, right, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to call it Ploguary. And I thought, let's be clever about this. For a start, I've got a full-time job. So this is 3 years ago. I've got a full-time job. So I need to do this every day. I've got to try and figure around a job. I've got to be realistic and say, okay, when I'm working, I, I just can't get that number of miles in. I can't go out and do a marathon before work. So I'm going to take a little bit easier and I'm going to do kilometers instead of miles. So instead of doing 26 miles on the 26th, I'll do 26 kilometers. That's a lot easier for me because it's a long, I had to do it in the morning before work. So that was the first change I made. I went in kilometers instead of miles. The next change I went is I thought I'm going to be really clever about this. I'm going to do February. That's why I called it Ploguary, because February's only got 28 days in it. That's pretty clever. What I didn't really think about was the fact that February is in the winter, so the weather's awful. And we had 3 storms that year as well, some really nightmare storms. So I'm doing it with just the wind blowing around me and everything. And it's also really dark. So I had to get all those runs in the morning. So I spent the entire time just running in the dark in the morning. But I did it. So 3 years ago today, on the 28th of February, I finished Ploguary, and I ended up doing, I mean, you think about it, you do 1 kilometer on the first, 2 kilometers on the next. That's quite small then, but by the end of it, I did over 180 kilometers in the last week. So it really started adding up, and I ended up doing 454 kilometers in that month. And just from that plogging, I picked up 336 kilograms. So over 450 kilometers in 1 month, all before work in the morning, all in the dark, all in the winter. I didn't really think it through. And I actually said at the time it was the toughest thing I've ever done. I've done the Marathon des Sables. I've done these crazy adventures, but that really was the toughest thing I've ever done because of one important reason. Forget the fact it was in the winter. Forget the fact that all these storms. The reason is because I was doing it alongside a full-time job. I was doing this intense workout in the morning that was taking hours and then going to work at 8 o'clock in the morning. It was exhausting. If you look at these professional athletes and they're so, I know that they feel blessed to be able to do it, but don't take away from what you as an amateur runner or as a person that loves playing sport, what you're doing. You're doing that alongside a job. You're doing that alongside your life that is also intense. And the reason why that was so tough is because I was doing it alongside a job. When I did the Marathon des Sables, the 240 kilometers in 1 week in the Sahara Desert, that was the only thing I was focused on. I wasn't focused on anything else. It didn't matter. I didn't have to go and do Excel programming after I'd done my run. I could just focus on that one thing, and that really gives you a mind space, a room in your mind to be able to handle it. Whereas what I was doing is I was going out and doing it in the morning, just completely absorbed in that. Then I'd have to switch gear and suddenly go to work, and I was exhausted. I was really feeling dizzy in the evenings. That was really getting out of. At one point, I thought, "Can I really carry on?" I did, and I completed it. So for you, as if you're a runner, or if you love playing sports and you like, especially if they're ultra distance ones, for instance, then don't lessen the impact of that just because there's someone that can run a 2-hour marathon doesn't detract, it shouldn't detract from what you're doing, because you're doing that alongside your own life, which could also, it can be time consuming, it can be intense. So Plogguary for me was the toughest thing I'd ever done, but I was super proud of it. And I think it still is one of the toughest things I've ever done. So these projects, and I've done loads of other projects as well. I mean, every year I do Canuary, so that still goes through. But Plogguary was really, I think, the first true project that I did in terms of this extreme stuff. And it got me hooked for the next few years. So for the next 3 years, I was like going, oh, I'd love to do this full time. If I did this full time, and I'd be dreaming. And I was like, oh, if I did this full time, then I'd love to do Plogguary, but not in kilometers, and do it in miles, do it properly. So I'd end up doing over marathons each day towards the end of the month. I'd do it in July or something along those lines. So the project idea really was, I was like, oh, if I had that freedom, if I wasn't restricted to a desk, I could do all of this extra stuff. And I could do it during the daytime as well, and I could really make something more of it. So one of the first things that happened when I turned professional last October was, I can do something. I can really make an epic I can really make an epic project. I can do an epic adventure. I can really go off and do something extreme that I wouldn't have the opportunity to do otherwise. And so that's what's happening in May. This is the first big adventure. Yeah, sure, I've got the earth suit that I ran around in. Sure, I've got, the Canuary dress and all those things, but those are 1 days. This is something I'm not restricted to a desk job. I don't have to go to an office every day. I'm going out for a run. Doesn't matter where I'm running. I could be running in a different place. So I've got that freedom, and I want to make the most of it. So that is where the 12 STEDEN PLOG, the 12 city plog came from, the idea of doing something crazy. And as is always going on in my mind, as soon as I go crazy, I think of ways of making it crazier. It just works like that. Before I go into what the 12 STEDEN PLOG is, let me tell you about my first idea. So I'd written this bucket list of things that I'd love to do. And this was before I even knew I was going to be a professional. I was like, this is my bucket list of items that I really want to do. I really want to sort of go off and just do those. And one of them was to plog around the border of the Netherlands. So literally just go where the border is, just follow it all the way around. And I think it was probably about 2,500 kilometers or something, 2,000 kilometers, something along those lines. I really wanted to do that. And so that actually was the idea that I had when I first went professional. I was like, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do the borders, plog the border of the Netherlands. And then a friend of mine, Joris at RunX, so RunX are one of my sponsors, and Joris told me about this guy that mountain biked between the 12 capital cities of each province. So the Netherlands is made up of 12 provinces, and each province has got a capital city. So we're in the north, we're in Noord-Holland, so in the north of Holland. And that province, the capital city, happens to be Haarlem, where I live. So he told me about this guy that went biking there, and then that just resonated. Because one of the things that I had with that I want to do with these projects is to be seen. I was looking at a YouTube video this week of NOS Jeugdjournaal, so the children's news program, and they had me on there. And I didn't realize it was on YouTube. I just found it on YouTube by chance. And I looked at the comments, and one of the comments just said, yeah, aandacht. So translating that is attention seeker, really. They were just like saying, yeah, that guy's an attention seeker. And I replied to it and I said, yeah, heck yeah, 1000% true. I am an attention seeker. Everything I do, I want people to see me. I want to be seen. I want to be as big as Kim Kardashian on Instagram, because the more people that see me, the bigger an audience I've got to inspire. And it's not to say, look how cool I am. I mean, I'm an old guy, old bald guy with wobbly bits. I'm not really going to inspire people to sort of become me, but hopefully I can inspire people to do what I do, because that's cool. I'm not cool. What I do is cool. Picking up a piece of trash is cool. No question about it. So I do want to be seen. And the problem I had with the borders of the Netherlands was I'm literally just going to be going through the forest in the middle of nowhere, not being seen. Whereas when Joris told me about this idea of going through each of the cities, I was like going, oh, wow, that's a lot of people that will see me. So that is where the 12 cities idea came from. And the reason why it's called 12 STEDEN PLOG is because, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but there is the 11 STEDEN Tocht, which is a very famous Dutch event that hasn't happened for a couple of decades. But so it's just a play on that name. I won't go further into it, but if you're Dutch, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. So it was a fun play on that one, but basically means the 12 city plog. So the idea is I will run from and to each of the capital cities of each province. So that means that I can start in Haarlem. Haarlem is the capital city of the North Holland. I can go there, then I go down to South Holland, which is going to be Den Haag. So I will, or the Hague, whichever you want to call it. So the idea is I will literally run to each of those cities in turn and do a great big loop of the Netherlands. And just doing that means I cover the entire Netherlands. The rest of it is purely luck and coincidence, because I was like working, okay, let's do that. How long do I need? And then I kind of figured out, oh, it was around 1,200 kilometers if I just want to sort of just go directly, or something along those lines. And then I was like, okay, well, how long is that? Let's say I do a marathon each day, and it just worked out perfectly. So there's no great scheme of how I came up with it. It just worked out by chance that if I do 31 marathons, so if I do a marathon every day for a month, that I will be able to go and visit all of those cities. So it ends up around 1,300 kilometers in 1 month of running and picking up trash. So what is the Tale of Steden Plog? It's a 1,300 kilometer adventure, 31 marathons in the month of May. So every day in May, I will run at least a marathon. I put an emphasis on at least, because some of them I know I've got to run a little bit further to get to the next place I'm going to be staying. It's self-supported. So that is purely, why is it self-supported? Purely because, and I was talking about this to a friend this morning, is because it's cheaper. It's cheaper. It has less dependency on anyone. It has no dependency on anyone. One of the biggest things I have, or one of the biggest fears is that I have when I do these things, is that no one's going to come along to the event, or if I host an event, no one's going to come along to it, or no one will want to do it. You know, will I be able to get friends to come along and be a support crew? Will I be able to even pay for people to come along and be a support crew? It just removes all of that stress from me. So I'm doing it self-supported purely because it is less stressful for me, and has no dependency on anyone. It just means I can just go out the door and just go and do it. So it's going to be self-supported. I'm going to be running the entire way. So it's going to be running a marathon. I'm going to put a caveat on that in a second. So I'm going to be running the entire way and plogging the entire way. So for the whole marathon, I'll be picking up trash. 31 marathons every day, constantly picking up trash. Now, there's no time limit on the marathon. So when I say running, I will probably be slow jogging and walking just because I will be picking up trash. When you go plogging and you're doing it constantly, it does slow you down, and so it's going to be a bit of a jog, stop, start, and things. So it won't have that intensity of running a 4-hour marathon every day, but it will have the intensity of picking up trash the whole time. So even though it sounds less, it actually is going to be a little bit more exhausting in many ways. Maybe it won't be so demanding on my body, but it will be pretty exhausting going out for 8 hours of picking up trash constantly and jogging. And because it's self-supported, I need to take all my gear with me. It's not like I've got someone I can just throw it in the back of a van and someone's going to drive it around for me. I've got to have all my gear with me. So the idea is to get a baby jogger. So I'm reaching out to baby jogging companies at the moment to see if one of them will gift me a baby jogger. And then I can put all my gear in that. And I think that's going to be the easiest way. Originally, I was going to do a beach buggy trolley thing that you see, but it's going to be way easier to have a baby jogger. It's going to be easier to push it and things. And then what I do is on the baby jogger, I'm going to have sort of 4 different rings that's going to hold the bin bags on them. So in effect, it's going to be, I don't need to carry anything. All I need to do is push something and have a grabber in my hand, and then I can just pick up the trash and throw it into the bin bags that I've got placed in rings on the outside of these baby joggers. So then I can sort out the trash. I'll be just picking up trash and then putting it in a bin when it's full. But I can, for instance, the deposit cans, because Statiegeld Nederland, the deposit system here in the Netherlands, is a big supporter of mine and sponsor. So it'd be really cool to actually, if I see a can that's got a deposit on it, put it separately so I can go and get the money and donate that to a charity when I can. So I will be separating cans and plastic bottles, but all the other trash will be just going to a single bag, and then I'll be putting it in a bin when I find a bin. So I'm going to be going through all the 12 provinces, and then what I'm going to do is in each province, I'm going to be doing a cleanup. In fact, it's grown here as well. But the original idea was to go to those 12 cities, and in each of the 12 cities, I'll contact the council and say, look, I want to do a cleanup by your city hall, and then we'll just do it for an hour, and then I'll go off and do my marathon to the next destination. So that was the idea. But it's kind of grown a bit now, so that if I'm in a location that suits it, it doesn't have to be one of those 12 capital cities. I've gone in, and I can figure out a route that means I go to more cities, and it means that I've got a chance of doing more cleanup. So I'm going to try and do nearly an official cleanup each day, unless I'm in the middle of nowhere. So I think probably, 70% of the time I'll do a cleanup in the morning, an organized cleanup. And I really want to encourage people coming along to that. And in fact, I want to encourage people coming along to the whole thing. I'm going to be sharing my route every day. I'm going to be sharing my location constantly. So I'll be on live. There'll be live tracking. I've got a Garmin watch that does live tracking. So people will be able to see where I am at any one given time. They'll better track and sort of follow my route. So I really want to encourage people to come and say hi at any stage. Join me for any stage. I've got a friend, and I'll talk more about this in another podcast, I've got a friend who's actually going to be joining me for 3 or 4 days. He's going to be literally doing, I said to him, you realize you're going to be doing 3 or 4 marathons? And he was like, yeah, well, you're doing 31. Why shouldn't I do 3 or 4? So I think that's fantastic. So I'll do a special shout out to him a little bit closer to the time. But that's amazing. He's just coming to join me for 3 or 4 days. That's just wonderful. Yeah, so I really want to encourage people to come to those cleanups. Yeah, it's only going to be for like an hour, but I'll do a question and a Q&A session. I'll give a speech and things, and they're better sort of join me for an hour. We'll do an hour plog, and then I've got to head off because I've got to do a marathon. So that should be sort of pretty awesome. So it's going to be from the 1st of May. So on the 1st of May, I will be leaving Haarlem and starting my adventure, and then each day a marathon, cleanups, etc., until I end back. So I literally go, for those people that know the country, I'll be literally running down. It's crazy to think I'll be running down all the way down to Maastricht, and then when I'm in Maastricht, I'll be running all the way up to Groningen, and I'll even be going across to one of the islands into Schelling, and then coming back to Haarlem. And the idea is that I get back in Haarlem actually on the 30th, the evening of the 30th of May. So that means I've got one more marathon to do, the 31st of May, which is a Saturday, just by pure luck. So that means that the Saturday I will be in Harlem, starting in Harlem and finishing in Harlem. So I can do a marathon just running around Harlem, and I'll go and visit Sunfort and the museum there. And then I think it's going to be a lot easier for people to join me if they want to for bigger sections. And then I'll end up at 6 o'clock. Hopefully at 6 o'clock I would have finished in the Kroter Markt, in the main market square of Harlem at City Hall, and hopefully it'll be a celebration. Hopefully people will be there to support me. The press will be there. I'm really, really excited about this. I think it's got the possibility to really ignite the imagination. I've got this vision of a Forrest Gump type adventure where I start off with no one, but then hopefully towards the end I've got loads of people joining me. Now, in reality, it could be that I don't have anyone for the whole time, but then on the last day I do have, hopefully, let's say 20 people. I don't know. I don't know how long it's going to be, but hopefully I'll have more people joining me on that last day. I'm really excited about it. I'm so excited about this. Will I do it? As with every project, so if you go back to Plogger, if you go back to the Earth suit, if you go back to the Canuary dress, everything I do has a goal of breaking me. I do something to break me, to see how far I can go without failing. When during the pandemic, I did my first ever 180-kilometer training run week. So for 1 week, I did over 100 miles of running. I didn't know if I could do that or not. It was just an adventure to try and see if I could do it. And I did it. And I did it, I'm not saying comfortably, but I did it way easier than I thought I would. I thought I'd be destroyed at the end. And I was actually, oh, this isn't too bad. Yeah, for me, it was surprising how well my body coped with it. And so I do these things to break myself, to really make it, I think it makes it valuable. I think it makes it more, hopefully, more inspirational to do something not knowing if you're going to finish it. And this one, there is no room for error. So yes, I've got all day to get a marathon in, which is great. I could do a marathon in 10 hours. But if I get a cold, I've still got to go and do that marathon the next day because I've got a whole sequence of hotels I need to get to. It's not like I can stop for one day and say, I'll carry on the next. I'll have a rest and I'll carry on. No, I've got to carry on every day. And just like Plogger in January was nightmare conditions. Yeah, this is going to be better. It's going to be daylight. I'm not going to have that. But this is the Netherlands. Is there a month that ever goes by where you don't have 3 days of rain in a row? I could be running in a banana suit. Oh, did I even mention I'm doing this in a banana suit? How did I miss out? Yeah. One on that second, in a second. But so I could be running 3 days constantly in the rain, soaked through, cold. I've got to carry on. There's no reason to stop. How did I not mention I'm doing this in a banana suit? Of course I'm doing it in a banana suit. A classic example of making it tougher on myself is the original plan was just to do this in regular running gear. But then I thought, wow, let's make it tougher. Let's do it in a banana suit. So I'm going to be doing it in a banana suit. If that banana suit gets soaked, oh yeah, imagine running a marathon in pouring constant rain, picking up trash in a banana suit that will just soak up that water. That's a good example of making it tough on myself. But that's it. I'm just so excited about this adventure. I'm currently contacting all the hotels, and even that's proving a bit of a undertaking. I thought I thought it'd be quite easy to get a hotel to say, yeah, we'll put you up for the night for free. I've had some really nice responses. I've had one that said no, but even that was a nice response. But I'm surprised that even sort of a lot of the hotels just aren't responding to me. But yeah, hopefully I get hotels coming in. Otherwise, I'm going to have to take a tent around with me. I'm going to have to push a tent for the whole way because I need somewhere to sleep each night. So if I can't arrange a hotel, then I'll just pitch up a tent in the middle of nowhere. So loads of things that are going to be happening. And what you'll see on this podcast is there's going to be more and more talk about this. I want you to have a section on each week that's talking about how the training's going, because 1,300 kilometers in 1 month, that's 350 kilometers a week. 350 kilometers a week for 4 weeks, not just for 1 week, for 4 weeks. It's crazy with no rest days. Now, there are people that have done way more epic things. They've done ultra marathons for a whole year. No one's been picking up trash the whole time. I think that's all I want to talk about in this one. Hopefully it's inspired you to at least sort of maybe go to my website, sort of wayoflife.com, and then /12 STEDEN PLOG. I'll put a link in the description below, and then you can sort of have a look at it and sort of see the plan. I'm going to be adding more and more data as I get hotels on board and etc. So you'll be able to sort of see where I am there, and then that's going to have all the details about the adventure as it goes on. So excited. Unbelievably excited about this. Can't wait. Right. I should come up with, we should end here, and then I need to come up with a tip. let's end, and then I'll give you a tip.
Plug it and tag it and post it.
Okay, before we end, for those who've been watching the video, what do you think of my hat? So this Carhartt hat beanie, I actually found on the streets last week. So I've washed it and cleaned it, and it's so lovely. I really enjoy it. It looks kind of cool, huh? So for those on the video, what do you think? I think it looks good. There's one tip for you. You never know what you're going to find. Don't just assume it's trash. Maybe you can reuse it. And this is a perfect example of that. Is trash is a material. This has been something that other people have been saying to me more and more. And when I've been doing the Sandford Museum exhibition that's been really coming out is we need, the tip for us as ploggers and as just people in general is to not consider trash as trash. What makes that trash is the fact it's on the ground, it's been discarded and thrown on the ground. Is that what makes it trash? But it was something beforehand. This hat was, well, it was a hat. But before that, it was someone's hat, and I'm sure they loved it because I certainly love it. But everything, piece of packaging, that was there to protect the thing that the person's been eating before they discarded it on the ground. Maybe a piece of plastic. Everything that's on that ground served a purpose before it became trash. So my tip is don't. And someone actually, I think it was the Flying Beard Man in Australia was talking about we need to, or someone would, I can't remember who it was. They were like saying we've got to stop talking about the word trash and we've got to talk about something else, because if we do that, then we're talking about something it's become, not something it was, and we need to go back to thinking about it as a material. It is there. It served a purpose, and it still is something. It's not something that should be buried. It's something that had a life, and just discarding it is discarding the material that it was. I don't know if that was a good tip or not, but anyway, that just went through my brain. Maybe it's because my head's overheating in this hat. Did I mention this is a nice hat? Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. It was a little bit longer, but I think that probably just shows you how excited I am for this adventure. I can't wait. Thanks for listening. Speak to you next week. Bye.